Maya's hands trembled as she lifted the dusty box from her father's storage unit, the musty smell of cardboard and forgotten memories filling her nostrils. The fluorescent lights above flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows across the cramped space, filled with the remnants of Ronald Giggles Morrison's life. 26 years had passed since her father disappeared, along with 12 other people at little Emma Chen's 8th birthday party on Maple Street. A tragedy that had transformed their small town of Millbrook from a place where children played freely in their yards to one where parents clutched their kids' hands a little tighter, where birthday parties became subdued affairs, and where the cheerful sound of carnival music could still make grown adults break into cold sweats. The case had become Millbrook's defining wound. Detective Sarah Walsh, now retired, still kept the thick file on her kitchen table, rereading witness statements and crime scene photos during sleepless nights. The Chen family had moved away within a month, unable to bear the pitying stares and whispered theories. Mrs. Henderson from across the street swore she'd seen strange vans circling the neighborhood for weeks before the incident. Old Mr. Kowalski claimed he'd heard screaming. Around 3 p.m., though the official timeline put the explosion at 3:47 p.m. The conspiracy theories ranged from government cover-ups to alien abductions, but they all shared one common thread. Nothing about the official story made sense. Maya had been 12 then, old enough to understand that her father was the prime suspect, young enough to defend him with the fierce loyalty only a daughter could possess. She remembered the way people's faces changed when they saw her at school, the mixture of pity and suspicion, the hushed conversations that stopped when she entered a room. "That's Giggles' daughter," they would whisper. "Poor thing, but you never know what runs in families." The box contained dozens of VHS tapes, their labels written in her father's careful handwriting. Tommy Rodriguez, birthday #7. Sarah Kim, princess party. Marcus Thompson, superhero theme. Her father had been Millbrook's beloved party clown for over 2 decades, bringing joy to countless celebrations with his arsenal of magic tricks, balloon animals, and an endless supply of bad jokes that somehow always made children dissolve into giggles. But these tapes... Maya's blood ran cold as she recognized the final date, written in slightly shakier handwriting, as if her father's hand had been trembling. Emma Chen, March 15th, 1998, God forgive me. Maya sat in her cramped apartment, rain drumming against the windows as the old VCR hummed to life. She had spent her entire adult life running from Millbrook, building a career as a social worker in Chicago, always drawn to protecting children, though she could never quite articulate why. Now, at 38, she found herself confronting the ghosts she'd tried so hard to escape. The screen flickered to life, revealing her father in his colorful costume, the oversized polka-dotted shirt, the rainbow suspenders, the red nose that had seemed so magical when she was small. But watching as an adult, Maya noticed details that had escaped her child's perception. The way his smile sometimes faltered between jokes, the dark circles under his makeup, the tremor in his hands when he thought no one was looking. "Why did you keep these, Dad?" she whispered to the empty room, her own reflection ghost-like in the darkened window behind the television. She fast-forwarded through dozens of parties, watching her father transform from the jovial entertainer she remembered into someone increasingly haunted. The Johnny Martinez birthday party from January 1998 showed Ronald forgetting the punchline to his signature joke. At the Williams twins' party in February, he dropped his juggling balls twice, something that never happened to the man who could juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle. Her father had never spoken about that day, not once in the months before his own death from cancer 3 years ago. Even when the morphine loosened his tongue and he rambled about childhood memories and long-dead relatives, March 15th, 1998 remained locked away. The official investigation, led by Detective Walsh and a team of federal agents who descended on Millbrook like vultures, concluded that a gas leak had caused a catastrophic explosion. But no bodies were ever found. No trace of the Chen family's beautiful Victorian house remained, just a perfectly circular crater where it had stood, as if the earth itself had opened up and swallowed 13 souls whole. Maya had been at her friend Jessica's sleepover that night, 23 miles away in Riverside, when the phone call came. Mrs. Patterson's voice, tight with fear. "Maya, honey, there's been an accident. I need you to stay right where you are until I can come get you." The drive back to Millbrook had felt like traveling through a nightmare. Fire trucks, ambulances, news vans, and crowds of neighbors standing behind yellow tape, staring at nothing. Just empty space where a house should have been. As she progressed through the tapes chronologically, a disturbing pattern emerged. In the weeks leading up to the disappearance, her father's performances had changed dramatically. His usual exuberance seemed forced, like an actor who'd forgotten how to inhabit his role. His signature balloon animals became increasingly complex and frantic, as if he were trying to lose himself in the work. In one video from early March, she caught him glancing nervously over his shoulder at something off camera, his face tight with an emotion she'd never seen before. Terror. Most unsettling of all were the moments when he addressed the camera directly, something he'd never done in the earlier tapes. Quick, furtive glances that lasted only seconds, but carried the weight of unspoken desperation. "Remember to be good, kids," he would say, his usual cheerful delivery replaced by something that sounded almost like a warning. "Always tell your parents where you're going, and never talk to strangers who seem too friendly. Sometimes the people who smile the biggest have the darkest secrets." The tape from February 28th, 1998, made Maya's stomach clench with a nausea that had nothing to do with the Chinese takeout she'd barely touched. Her father was performing at the Hendricks house. She remembered the family, remembered how Mrs. Hendricks always made the most elaborate themed decorations, how Mr. Hendricks would slip Ronald an extra 20 for making our little girl so happy. The familiar living room looked exactly as Maya remembered, with its rose-colored wallpaper and the grandfather clock that chimed every 15 minutes. But everything about her father was wrong. Between balloon animals and magic tricks, she noticed him checking his watch obsessively, his movements becoming more frantic with each passing minute. When 7-year-old Sarah Hendricks tugged on his oversized pants and asked for a story, Ronald's face went pale beneath his white grease paint. He knelt down to her level, and Maya could see his hands shaking as he stroked the child's blonde curls. "Once upon a time," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "there was a clown who made a terrible mistake. He trusted someone he shouldn't have, and innocent people paid the price." The camera captured the exact moment the room's atmosphere changed. The other children stopped their chattering and turned to listen, sensing something different in his tone. Mrs. Hendricks, who had been arranging the gift table, paused with a present in her hands, her smile faltering. "Ronald, that's not a very happy story for a birthday party," she said, with a nervous laugh, but Maya could see the concern in her eyes. Ronald seemed to snap back to awareness, forcing his trademark grin so wide it looked painful. "You're right. You're absolutely right. Let me tell you about the brave princess who saved her kingdom instead." But Maya saw what the others had missed, the single tear that had cut a clean path through his white makeup, leaving a flesh-coloured streak down his left cheek. As he launched into the princess story, his voice cracked twice, and he kept glancing toward the front window, as if expecting someone to appear. Later, as the party wound down and children were collected by their parents, Maya watched her father pack his supplies with mechanical precision. His usual ritual of checking each prop, making sure every balloon was properly deflated, seemed to take forever. The camera captured him in profile as he stared at the Hendricks family photo on the mantel. A picture of Sarah blowing out candles from her 6th birthday, when the world had still made sense. Mrs. Hendricks appeared beside him, laying a gentle hand on his arm. "Ronald, are you all right? You seem different lately." He turned to her with such raw pain in his eyes that Maya had to pause the tape. When she resumed, she heard him say, "Just make sure Sarah knows she's loved, okay? Make sure she knows that every single day. And if anyone ever approaches her claiming to know me, or saying they want to help her become famous, promise me you'll call the police immediately." Mrs. Hendricks looked bewildered. "What are you talking about? Ronald, you're scaring me." But he was already walking away, lugging his enormous duffel bag of props toward the door. Maya watched him pause at the threshold, turning back one last time to look at Sarah, who was showing off her new doll to a friend. His mouth moved silently, and Maya thought she could read his lips. "I'm sorry." She paused the tape, her heart racing. What mistake? Who had he trusted? For the first time, doubt crept into her mind about her father's innocence. The final tape was different from all the others, startlingly, unnervingly different. Maya had expected to see the Chen party, to witness whatever had happened in those final moments. Instead, she found herself staring at her father's basement workshop, the same space where he'd practiced his routines and repaired his props for 20 years. The familiar smell of rubber cement and face paint seemed to emanate from the screen. The timestamp in the corner read March 15th, 1998, 2:47 p.m., just 1 hour before Emma Chen's birthday party was scheduled to begin. Her father sat alone at his workbench, still in his street clothes, his clown costume hanging on the hook behind him like the shed skin of some colorful creature. His face was drawn, aged by what looked like decades, in the weeks since she'd last seen him in person. He stared directly into the camera with the hollow gaze of a man who had already died inside, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute finality. "Maya, if you're watching this, then something has happened to me, and you're old enough to understand what I'm about to tell you." He paused, running his hands through graying hair that she'd never seen without his rainbow wig. "I need you to know the truth about what I've done and what I'm about to do. I need you to understand that everything that happens today, all of it, it's because I love you more than my own life. And I love every child in this God-forsaken town enough to burn in hell for them." Maya's hands shook as she gripped the remote, her knuckles white against the black plastic. 3 months ago, a man approached me after Jenny Martinez's party, said his name was Vincent Cross, claimed to be a talent scout for Nickelodeon's new children's programming division. He had business cards, references, even showed me video clips of other performers he'd discovered. Said I had that special spark, that rare ability to connect with kids that couldn't be taught. Ronald's laugh was bitter, broken. God help me, Maya. I believed him. Your mother had just served me with divorce papers. The medical bills from your grandmother's cancer were crushing us, and this man was promising enough money to solve all our problems. He said he just wanted to film my performances, study my techniques, maybe eventually bring me to Los Angeles for a screen test. The camera shook as Ronald stood, his chair scraping against the concrete floor. He paced out of frame, and Maya could hear him opening and closing drawers, the sound of glass clinking against metal. For 2 months, Vincent followed me to parties, always professional, always respectful. He'd set up his cameras discreetly, never interfered with my performance, always asked permission from the parents. They loved him. Charming, well-dressed. Spoke about child development like he had advanced degrees. Some of the mothers even asked if he was single. Ronald's voice broke. If only they had known what those cameras were really recording. He returned to his chair, and Maya saw he was holding something, a thick manila envelope that seemed to burn his fingers. I found these photos in Vincent's car last week when he asked me to grab his equipment bag. Children, Maya, beautiful, innocent children in situations that no child should ever. I can't even say it out loud, but I recognized some of the faces. Kids from parties I'd performed at over the past 2 months. And worse, much worse. Some of the photos were taken at locations I'd never been to, which meant Vincent had been using my connection to these families to gain access to their homes. Maya felt bile rise in her throat, her father's words confirming her worst suspicions, while simultaneously revealing horrors she hadn't even imagined. When I confronted him, Vincent didn't even try to deny it, just smiled that perfect smile, and explained how the operation worked, how performers like me were the perfect cover trusted by parents, invited into homes, able to identify which children were most vulnerable. He showed me a network that spanned half the country, dozens of entertainers who either knew exactly what they were facilitating or, like me, had been manipulated into becoming unwitting accomplices. Ronald's face hardened, and for a moment Maya saw something she'd never witnessed in her gentle father, pure, murderous rage. He had insurance, of course, video evidence of me at parties, where children later disappeared, financial records showing payments to my account that looked like I was being compensated for more than just entertainment. Even if I went to the police, who would believe that I was innocent? Who would believe that I had no idea what was happening right under my nose? Maya felt bile rise in her throat. Her father, the man she'd idolized, had been trapped in an unthinkable situation. Today is Emma Chen's party. Vincent plans to take some of the children. I can't let that happen. I won't let that happen. Ronald's face hardened with resolve. I've called the police, but Vincent has connections. He'll disappear before they arrive, so I'm going to end this myself. The camera captured Ronald reaching into a drawer, pulling out something Maya couldn't see clearly. I've planted something in Vincent's van, something that will ensure he never hurts another child. The house might not survive, but the children will be safe. I've arranged for them to be taken to a secure location before it happens. Maya's mind reeled. Her father hadn't been a victim of the explosion. He had caused it. The tape continued with her father's final confession. Vincent's organization is bigger than just him. They have people everywhere, police, judges, social workers. If I just turn him in, he'll walk free and find new victims. This is the only way to guarantee their network crumbles. Ronald pulled on his clown costume with mechanical precision, each piece of his cheerful facade masking the weight of his decision. I know what people will think. They'll call me a monster, a child killer. They'll never know that every single person at that party, except Vincent and his men, will be relocated with new identities, new lives away from this horror. The families have been contacted by federal agents. They know their children are safe, but they can never come forward without endangering everyone. Maya gasped. The families knew. All these years they had let the town believe in a tragedy while protecting a larger truth. Maya, I need you to understand. I'm not a hero. I failed those children by letting Vincent get close in the first place. But I won't fail them again. This ends today. Her father looked directly into the camera one last time. Live your life, sweetheart. Be better than me. And if you ever doubt that I love you, remember that everything I'm about to do is so children like you can sleep safely at night. The tape ended abruptly. Maya sat in stunned silence for hours. Finally, she reached for her phone and dialed the number she'd found tucked behind the last tape. Agent Martinez, FBI. I've been waiting for your call, Miss Morrison. You knew I'd find these. Your father was very thorough. He wanted you to have answers when you were ready. Are you somewhere safe? Maya looked around her empty apartment. I think so. Is it true? Are they all alive? Yes. Emma Chen is now Emma Williams, a pediatric nurse in Oregon. She has 2 children of her own. The others have similarly successful lives, though they can never acknowledge their past. And Vincent Cross, dead, along with 12 members of his network. Your father's sacrifice exposed a trafficking ring that spanned 3 states. We've rescued over 200 children because of his information. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. Why couldn't he just tell me? Because you were a child, and because the less you knew, the safer you were. Cross had associates who might have targeted you for revenge. Agent Martinez's voice softened. Maya, there's something else. Emma Williams. She's been hoping to meet you someday. She remembers your father's kindness, how he made sure she felt safe, even in those final moments. She's never forgotten the clown who saved her life. She wants to meet me, only if you're ready. She understands the risk, the need for secrecy, but she wanted you to know that your father died a hero in her eyes, not a monster. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 26 years of shame and confusion lifting from her shoulders. Her father hadn't been perfect. He'd made mistakes that put children in danger, but when it mattered most, he'd chosen to sacrifice everything to protect innocence. Tell her yes, Maya whispered. Tell her I'd like to meet Emma. 6 months later, Maya sat in a small coffee shop in Portland, watching a woman with kind eyes and graying hair approach her table. Emma Williams, formerly Emma Chen, moved with the confidence of someone who had transformed childhood trauma into purpose. You have his eyes, Emma said softly, settling into the chair across from Maya. He had the kindest eyes, even behind all that makeup. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Emma shared stories of her work as a nurse, her dedication to helping children heal from trauma. Maya spoke about her job as a social worker, how she'd always felt drawn to protecting others without fully understanding why. Do you think he knew? Emma asked as they prepared to part. That we'd all turn out okay? Maya considered the question, remembering her father's final words on the tape. I think he hoped. I think that hope was what gave him the strength to do what he did. As they hugged goodbye, Emma whispered, He saved more than just our lives that day. He showed us that sometimes the greatest act of love is making the hardest choice. Walking home through the city streets, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. Peace. Her father's story wasn't a simple tale of heroism or tragedy. It was complex, messy, and ultimately human. He had failed, and he had redeemed himself. He had caused pain and prevented greater suffering. In her apartment that night, Maya carefully packed away the VHS tapes. The truth they contained would remain her secret, a burden and a gift from a father who had loved her enough to carry the darkness alone. Outside her window, spring was beginning to bloom. Children played in the park across the street, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Maya smiled, thinking of Emma and the others, living full lives under different names, their childhood joy restored despite everything they'd endured. Ronald Giggles Morrison had disappeared 26 years ago, taking with him the laughter and innocence of Millbrook. But in his place, he had left something more valuable, the safety of 13 souls and the knowledge that even in the darkest circumstances, love could still light the way forward. The last birthday party had ended in apparent tragedy, but it had also marked the beginning of 13 new lives, and the quiet heroism of a father who chose love over fear, sacrifice over self-preservation. Maya closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Dad. I understand now." In the silence that followed, she could almost hear the echo of distant children's laughter, carried on the wind like a promise that innocence, once lost, could still be found again.